The dim chamber aboard the Harbinger pulsed with an otherworldly glow, the light emanating from the ancient symbols etched into the floor and walls. Captain Rourke stood at the center, his hands steady despite the tumult of emotions roiling beneath his calm exterior. Around him, the crew gathered, faces etched with exhaustion, fear, and fragile hope. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense, mingling with the salty tank of the sea that clung to every corner of the ship. "This is it," Rourke murmured, his voice low but resolute. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Ilara adjusted the delicate wires and conduits she had fashioned to channel the elemental energies required for the ritual. "The Helm's curse has shadowed us for too long," she said, eyes locked on the glowing artifact cradled in the center of the chamber. "Tonight, we end it." Joran's fingers trembled as he traced the intricate lines of the navigation charts scattered nearby, their paths now seeming less certain, yet somehow more meaningful. "I pray we're not too late," he whispered. Mira, cloaked in her shifting garments, stepped forward, her gaze piercing through the dim light. "The spirits bound to the Helm will not yield easily. We must be prepared for anything." Rourke nodded. "Then let us begin." The crew formed a circle, hands joined or resting on the ancient relic. As the ritual commenced, currents of energy swirled around them, invisible threads weaving between the living and the spectral. The Harbinger groaned beneath them, as if bearing the weight of centuries of curses and hopes. Suddenly, a piercing wail shattered the silence. Sirin, the youngest among them, collapsed, her body convulsing as the curse fought to cling to its last vessel. "No," Ilara cried, rushing to her side. But it was too late. Seren's light faded, her spirit released but leaving a void that echoed through the hearts of those left behind. Tears blurred Rourke's vision as he knelt beside the empty bunk, the rain tapping softly on the ship's hull like a mournful lullaby. "We carry her with us," he vowed, voice thick with grief. "Her sacrifice will not be in vain." Days passed in a haze of quiet mourning and cautious optimism. The cursed weight that had hung over the Harbinger lifted, and with it, a new dawn broke over the submerged world. The islands shimmered under golden sunlight, the skies calm and clear for the first time in what felt like an eternity. Ilara and Joran stood side by side at the prow, the wind tousling their hair as they shared a moment of reflection. "We've paid dearly," Ilara said softly, "but maybe now there's a chance for something different." Joran nodded, eyes on the distant horizon. "The journey isn't over, but we face it with hope and with each other." Captain Rourke's gaze swept across his weary but unbroken crew. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the shadows of the past had been lifted, if only for now. The Harbinger sailed onward, carrying its crew toward uncertain futures, their scars a testament to the cost of redemption and the enduring power of hope. And as the submerged world breathed anew beneath the endless sky, a fragile peace settled, a promise that even amidst loss, new legends could rise from the ashes. The mist clung to the Harbinger like a shroud, a cold phosphorescent fog rising from the haunted sea beneath them. Ghostly lights flickered beneath the waves, casting an eerie glow that danced upon the weather-beaten hull. Captain Rourke stood at the prow, his eyes scanning the horizon where grey skies met the restless sea, rain mingling with the salt spray that whipped his face. The air was heavy with a lingering tension, unspoken dread that the ritual meant to break the Ghost Helm's curse had instead stirred something far more dangerous. Below deck, the engine room hummed with strained effort. Mara's hands flew over the controls, sweat and grime mingling on her furrowed brow. Sparks erupted from faulty wiring, each flash illuminating the determined set of her jaw. Elias paced nearby, his pale fingers tightening around a compass as his voice cracked with frustration. "We can't keep this up much longer, Mara. The engines are failing, and the curse's grip is tightening. It's like the very air conspires against us." "Don't look at me like I'm the cause," Mara snapped, her voice sharp as the wrench she brandished. "I'm doing everything I can with what we've got. Maybe if you stopped second-guessing every move, we'd have a chance." Their argument echoed through the cramped space, a reflection of the fractures appearing among the crew. The curse's shadow loomed, seeping into their minds and sowing doubt as surely as it stirred the haunted sea around them. On deck, Celine stood apart, her hood drawn low against the chill. Her voice was a soft murmur, chanting words ancient and strange, weaving a fragile shield against the restless spirits awakened by the broken curse. The wind tugged at her robes, the storm's howl rising in answer. But she remained steadfast, a beacon of calm in the growing tempest. Rourke's gaze never left the horizon. Each creak of the rigging, each groan of the timber beneath his feet, reminded him of the precariousness of their survival. The crew looked to him not just as their captain, but as the fragile thread holding them together. His past failures haunted him, but so did the hope that this voyage might yet lead to redemption. Suddenly, the sea below roiled violently. Ghostly shapes surged beneath the surface, spectral tendrils reaching upward as if to snatch the ship from the sky. Lightning crackled, illuminating the swirling chaos. The Harbinger shuddered, sails billowing wildly as the storm closed in. "Brace for impact," Rourke commanded, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. The crew scrambled, securing lines, readying for the assault of the haunted sea's wrath. Mara's hands flew over the controls, coaxing the engine to respond even as sparks danced perilously close. Elias shouted directions, his voice cutting through the howling wind, guiding the ship through treacherous currents. Selena's chant rose, harmonizing with the storm, a desperate plea to the spirits that danced on the edge of the mortal world. Hours passed in a blur of wind, rain, and spectral fury. Exhaustion weighed on every soul aboard, but the Harbinger held firm, inching steadily toward the distant glow of the floating islands that marked the way home. As dawn broke, the storm finally abated, leaving a fragile calm in its wake. The crew gathered on deck, faces pale but resolute. Rourke stepped forward, voice carrying over the quiet sea. "We've paid a heavy price to break this curse, but the journey isn't over. The haunted sea remembers, and so must we." Eyes turned to the horizon, where dark shapes loomed more than mere clouds or islands. Shadows moved with unnatural purpose, a reminder that the ghost helm's grip was not yet fully broken. The Harbinger sailed on, carrying its weary crew through the haunted sea, each moment a test of endurance and unity. The curse had awakened new dangers, but it had also forged a bond among those who dared to defy it. In the face of ghostly storms and creeping despair, Captain Rourke and his crew pressed forward, determined to reach home or fall trying. The haunted sea whispered its warnings, but the Harbinger answered with the roar of its engines and the steady beating of human hearts. The journey through the shadows was far from over, and the skies ahead promised challenges as vast and unyielding as the submerged world itself. As the sun climbed higher, a sudden movement caught Ilias's eye shapes emerging from the mist, circling like vultures drawn to the scent of curse and ruin. Rourke's hand tightened on the rail. "Prepare yourselves," he said grimly. "The true test begins now." And with that, the haunted sea closed in once more, eager to reclaim its due. The grand chamber of the Airborne Sailing Council was a cavernous room perched high above the floating city, its walls adorned with banners depicting skyships in majestic flight, their sails full against the endless blue. The air was thick with the murmurs of assembled dignitaries, captains, and officials, their faces etched with curiosity, skepticism, and anticipation. At the center of the room stood a polished pedestal upon which rested the ghost helm, its dark metal gleaming faintly despite the dim light. The cursed artifact seemed to pulse with an unspoken menace, drawing more than a few wary glances. Captain Rourke stepped forward, his boots echoing against the stone floor. His coat, though worn, carried the marks of countless battles and storms endured. His eyes, dark and unyielding, swept over the crowd with a mixture of defiance and resolve. This was the moment he had long dreaded and yet desperately craved, the reckoning with those who had cast him down. "Esteemed members of the council," Rourke began, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "I stand before you not as the disgraced captain you condemned, but as the bearer of truths long buried beneath lies and fear. The ghost helm is no mere legend to be feared. In silence it is a curse that has claimed countless lives, and its history has been twisted to serve convenient ends." A sharp intake of breath rippled through the chamber. At the far end, Admiral Vance rose, his silver hair catching the light like a crown. His expression was one of cold calculation, eyes narrowing like a hawk assessing prey. "Captain Rourke," Vance's voice cut through the silence, "you presume much, bringing forth accusations without evidence. Your recklessness costs lives. Your disgrace is well earned. The Council has acted in the best interests of all airborne sailors." Rourke met his gaze unflinchingly. "The Council's best interests, or your own? The accident that stripped me of command was not the result of folly, but of a cover-up, one that hides the true nature of the Ghost Helm's curse and those who sought to exploit it." Murmurs grew louder, some voices rising in defense of the Admiral, others in shocked disbelief. Rourke motioned to Ira, who stepped forward, her presence commanding despite her quiet demeanor. "If I may," Ira said, her voice clear and resonant, "I have witnessed the helm's power and the lengths some will go to control it. The evidence Rourke brings is no mere rumor, but a documented truth that challenges the Council's narrative." A scroll was unfurled upon a side table, ancient texts, logs from lost ships, and testimonies painstakingly gathered during their voyage. The chamber fell into a stunned hush as the documents were examined. Navigator Talon and Engineer Myra stood behind Rourke, their faces a mix of pride and anxiety, knowing this moment could either redeem or doom them all. Admiral Vance's composure cracked, a flicker of anger flashing across his features. "These are forgeries." "No," Rourke replied, stepping closer. "These are the voices of those silenced by fear and power. It is time the airborne sailing community faces the truth, not just about the helm, but about the corruption that allowed this curse to fester unchecked." The assembly erupted into heated debate, alliances shifting as old wounds were reopened. Some captains voiced support for Rourke, recalling their own doubts about the helm's legend. Others clung to loyalty to the Council, wary of upheaval. As the meeting adjourned, Rourke found himself alone for a moment, the weight of years pressing down like the sky itself. Then Ira joined him, her voice soft yet resolute. "You have done what many feared. The path ahead is uncertain, but you have struck a blow for truth." He nodded, gazing out through the vast windows at the swirling airborne currents below. "This is only the beginning. The curse still haunts us, and my honor is far from restored. But today, I have reclaimed my voice." The crew gathered on the deck of the Harbinger afterwards, the sun dipping low and casting golden light over the weathered timbers. Navigator Talon adjusted the ship's course, Engineer Mira inspected the rigging, and Ira stood silent, her cloak fluttering in the breeze. Rourke's mind raced with plans and possibilities, the reckoning having opened wounds, but also paths to healing. He knew the airborne sailing community would never be the same, and neither would he. Yet, beneath the weight of uncertainty, a spark of hope kindled, a hope that the truth of the ghost helm might finally be faced, and that redemption, however costly, was within reach. But as the shadows lengthened and the currents whispered secrets, Rourke couldn't shake the feeling that darker storms still awaited beyond the horizon. The reckoning was not an end, but a summons to the battles yet to come. The marketplaces of the floating islands had never been so alive. Lanterns swung gently in the evening breeze, casting dancing shadows across faces turned upward with rapt attention. In the heart of the bustling square, Talon, the island's revered storyteller, wove the tale of the Harbinger and the ghost helm with a voice both grave and mesmerizing. Around him, the crowd hung on every word, their imaginations set aflame by the saga of the ill-fated helm and the captain who dared to bear its burden. It was said, Talon intoned, that the helm carried a curse darker than the endless sky, a doom that claimed every ship and soul that dared to ferry it. Yet one man, Captain Rourke, took up the charge, not for glory, but for redemption. Through storms conjured by the haunted sea, betrayals, and battles with sky pirates, he sailed onward, his resolve unbroken. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as children clutched their parents' hands, wide-eyed. Elders nodded solemnly, recalling their own whispered fears and hopes about the helm's power. In this telling, Rourke was no longer the disgraced captain who'd lost his command. He was a beacon of resilience, a symbol of hope that even the darkest curses could be faced and, perhaps, overcome. Meanwhile, on a quiet deck far above the bustling streets, Captain Rourke stood at the prow of the newly christened skyship, the Phoenix's Flight. The dawn painted the sky in hues of rose and gold, the soft light catching on the polished wood and rigging. The wind tugged at his coat, a familiar companion, while his gaze stretched toward the horizon, vast, uncharted, and filled with promise. He breathed deeply, feeling the weight of his past lift, replaced by a steady flame of determination. Beside him, the crew moved with practiced ease, their faces marked by the trials they had survived and the bonds forged in adversity. Alara, the ship's engineer, emerged from below deck, her hands still bearing the marks of her diligent work. She exchanged a brief, knowing look with Sorin, the navigator whose past burdens had once threatened to steer them astray. Below deck, the hum of the ship's engines blended with soft laughter and shared stories. For a moment, the ghosts of the past seemed to recede, replaced by a fragile peace. Alara and Sorin sat close, their earlier tensions eased by the journey's end and the promise of new beginnings. The camaraderie that had once seemed impossible now flickered like a steady flame, a testament to the transformative power of shared hardship. But not all was settled. On the mist-cloaked docks, Myra, the enigmatic passenger whose cryptic motives had shadowed the voyage, prepared to depart. Her silver hair caught the pale morning light as she turned to face Rourke one last time. Her voice, barely above a whisper, carried a final warning. "The helm's curse is not so easily laid to rest," she said, eyes glinting with an inscrutable depth. "The winds carry whispers still, and shadows stir where least expected." With that, she vanished into the swirling mists, leaving behind a chill that swept through the air like a ghost's breath. Rourke watched her go, a knot tightening in his chest, a reminder that the end of one journey only heralded the beginning of another. Back in the market square, Talon's voice rose to a crescendo, the tale reaching its climax. "And so," he declared, "the legend of the ghost helm lives on, carried on the wings of the Harbinger. A story of courage, sacrifice, and the unyielding spirit of those who dare to sail the endless sky. The crowd erupted in applause, their hearts stirred by the saga's enduring power. As they dispersed into the night, the story took root, destined to grow and evolve with each telling, inspiring future generations to brave the skies and confront their own shadows. Yet, in the quiet corners of the islands, whispers persisted. The Helm's curse, though diminished, was not banished entirely. New mysteries awaited in the currents above, and Captain Rourke, now a legend, knew that his journey was far from over. The skies beckoned, vast and endless, and with them the promise of new adventures and new dangers beyond the horizon. As the Phoenix's flight soared upward, cutting through the morning mist, Rourke's resolve hardened. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it head-on. The past had shaped him, but it would not define him. The legend of the ghost Helm was his to carry a burden and a beacon into the endless sky. The morning sun spilled its golden light over the coast, casting long, warm shadows across the scattered timbers of the Harbinger. The once proud skyship, battered and scarred by countless battles and curses, lay in fragments, its broken frame a solemn reminder of the trials endured and the price paid. Captain Rourke stood among the wreckage, his gaze steady and resolute despite the memories tugging at his heart. Around him, the remaining crew moved with purpose, their hands steady as they sorted salvageable materials from ruin. It was a scene of both an ending and a beginning. "We can't let her go to waste," Mira said, wiping the grime from her hands as she inspected a bent steel beam. "There's enough here to build something new, something better." Joss nodded, his eyes sharp beneath furrowed brows. "The currents have changed. The skies are different now. We'll need a ship that can handle that, but also one that can carry us beyond the submerged world." Rourke felt a flicker of warmth at their words. After everything, the curse, the losses, the betrayals, here was a chance to start anew. Then we build it right. No shortcuts, no ghosts from the past weighing us down. This ship will be ours, and it will carry us to the horizons we've only dared to dream of. The crew gathered around a rough blueprint sketched on weathered parchment, their faces illuminated by the soft dawn light. Designs flowed from Myra's skilled hands, incorporating lessons learned from the Harbinger's flaws and the unpredictable nature of the airborne currents. Joss contributed navigational insights, plotting courses that reached beyond the familiar islands and into the unknown expanse, where legends whispered of untold wonders and dangers. Tobin, young and eager, helped ferry materials and offered a buoyant energy that lifted spirits. Even Eli's, ever the enigmatic presence, lent her knowledge of ancient lore and subtle magic, suggesting enchantments to shield the vessel from the lingering shadows of the curse. Days turned into weeks as the new ship took shape, a sleek craft with reinforced hull plating, intricate sails designed to catch the most elusive currents, and a helm fashioned to symbolize their resolve rather than doom. The work was grueling, and moments of doubt crept in, but the crew's shared purpose welded them tighter than any metal. One afternoon, as Myra and Joss bent over a complex engine assembly, their conversation drifted beyond mechanics. "I never thought I'd see the day we'd be building a ship again," Myra murmured, tightening a bolt with a practiced hand. Joss smiled faintly. "Neither did I, but maybe it's not just about the ship. Maybe it's about what we carry inside us: hope, trust, a chance to redeem what's been lost." Their exchange was interrupted by the distant call of Rourke, who stood at the emerging helm, his silhouette framed by the vast azure sky. "Come, see what we've built," he called. The crew assembled, eyes wide as the ship gleamed under the afternoon sun, a testament to their resilience and dreams. Rourke placed a hand on the polished wheel, feeling the solid wood beneath his fingers, a tangible anchor to the future. "We set our course here," he said quietly, "not just across the skies, but toward a new legacy, one that we write together." As twilight descended, the crew gathered around a crackling fire near the shore. The haunted sea, once a source of dread, was now a distant memory behind them. Stories were shared, laughter echoed, and for a time, the burdens of the past lifted like the gentle evening breeze. Stars shimmered overhead, vast and unending, mirroring the endless possibilities that awaited. Yet beneath the smiles, Rourke's mind raced. The curse of the ghost Helm had not vanished entirely. Shadows lingered in the corners of their journey. But here, in the light of their new beginning, those shadows felt smaller, more manageable. He vowed silently to protect his crew, to face whatever storms lay ahead, and to chart a course toward hope, no matter the cost. The night deepened, and dreams took flight on the wings of the wind. Tomorrow, they would sail once more, not just away from the past, but into the endless sky of their future. The construction site buzzed with activity as the morning sun rose higher, casting sharp contrasts on the freshly hewn timbers and polished metal. Rourke moved among the workers, offering words of encouragement and steadying hands to those who faltered. Despite his stoic exterior, a quiet pride bloomed within him, feeling unfamiliar but welcome. Mira was at the engine room, directing the placement of a new kind of propulsor, designed to harness the more volatile currents recently discovered. Her face was streaked with sweat and soot, but her eyes shone bright with determination. Joss hovered nearby, mapping the complex pathways of the currents on his charts, his fingers tracing invisible lines that only he could see. "Captain," Myra called over the din, "these new stabilizers will give us an edge in the turbulent skies. If they work as I hope, we'll be able to navigate storms like the one that battered us before." Rourke nodded, the weight of responsibility settling comfortably on his shoulders. "Good, because we'll need every advantage to stay ahead of what's coming." The air was thick with the scent of sawdust, oil, and salt, a blend that had become their new normal. Around them, the workers hummed with purpose, their movements synchronized like the beating heart of the ship taking shape. In the quiet moments, Rourke found himself reflecting on the journey so far. The ghost Helm's curse had nearly broken them, but it had also forged an unyielding bond among the survivors. Each scar on the Harbinger's remains was a story of sacrifice, and now each new plank and rivet was a promise of life. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow upon the sea, the crew gathered to test the newly installed sails. The wind caught the fabric with a sudden rush, sending ripples that echoed like a call to adventure. "Feels like the sky itself is welcoming us back," Tobin said, eyes wide with excitement. Eli smiled enigmatically, her gaze drifting to the stars beginning to emerge overhead. "The winds remember those who respect them. We must honor that trust." Rourke stepped forward, placing his hand on the sail's edge. "Then let us set our course true and sail beyond the limits of the submerged world." The night was alive with possibility, and as the stars wheeled overhead, the new ship creaked and groaned, living vessel born of hope and resolve, ready to carry its crew toward horizons yet unseen. Days later, the shipyard was alive with the final touches. The crew worked tirelessly, their hands steady despite fatigue. Rourke oversaw the preparations, reviewing supplies and ensuring every detail was attended to. The ship had been named the New Dawn, a symbol of their rebirth and the promise of what was to come. Gathered in the captain's quarters, Rourke, Myra, Joss, Eli's, and Tobin laid out the route for their maiden voyage. The maps were dotted with uncharted territories, places whispered about in legends and feared by many. "We leave the safety of the known islands behind," Joss said, his voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "But that's where the true adventure lies." Rourke looked round at his crew, each carrying the weight of past sorrows but also the fire of new purpose. "We sail not just to escape the past, but to create a future worthy of our scars. Whatever awaits beyond, we face it together." The room fell silent, the gravity of the moment settling over them. Then, one by one, they nodded commitments, unspoken but understood. On the dawn of their departure, the crew assembled on deck. The sky was a canvas of pale pinks and oranges, the currents gentle and welcoming. As the new dawn lifted from the docks, a cheer rose from the hearts of those aboard, a sound carried on the wind like a prayer. Rourke took the helm, feeling the steady pulse of the ship beneath him. The horizon stretched endlessly ahead, a promise unbroken. Behind them lay the haunted sea and the cursed Helm, but before them, the boundless skies and the chance to reclaim honor, hope, and freedom. "Set the course," he ordered, voice firm and clear. The sails caught the wind, and with a powerful surge, the new dawn soared into the endless sky, carrying its crew toward the stories yet to be written. As twilight folded into night, the crew gathered around a fire on a quiet beach, the gentle sounds of waves mingling with their voices. Stories were shared, some light-hearted, others heavy with memory, but all woven with a renewed sense of camaraderie. Tobin recounted tales of youthful misadventures, drawing laughter from even the most solemn faces. Mira and Joss exchanged quiet glances, their earlier tensions softened by the warmth of shared purpose. Eli spoke softly of the stars and the winds, her words painting pictures of distant realms and destinies intertwined. Rourke listened, feeling the fragile threads of trust and friendship strengthen around him. The haunted sea was no longer a shadow looming over their voyage, but a distant echo, replaced by the steady pulse of hope and the thrill of the unknown. As the fire dwindled, Rourke's gaze lifted to the stars, his thoughts a mix of resolve and anticipation. The journey ahead was uncertain, the dangers unknown, but the crew was ready. Together, they would face whatever storms the skies dared to send. And as the night deepened, a whisper of wind carried a promise of new legends, new horizons, and the endless sky waiting to be explored. The course was set. The adventure was just beginning.